Hello, my name is Jose Flores, and today I'll be speaking on the assignment in theological ethics for counseling information called Moral Foundations, Disagreement, and Polarization. And so, in response to the first question of what moral foundations are most emphasized in the values, including the informing the code of ethics for your profession, and what foundations are least emphasized or ignored. Um, After reviewing the ACA Code of Ethics, I think the moral foundations that Hythe introduces are definitely the ones that are most emphasized are care, liberty, fairness, and loyalty. Um, and the least emphasized were authority and sanctity, in my opinion. The ACA Code of Ethic values are enhancing human development through the lifespan, honoring diversity and embracing a multicultural approach in support of the worth, dignity, potential, and uniqueness of people within their social and cultural contexts, promoting social justice, safeguarding the integrity of the counselor-client relationship, and practicing in a competent and ethical manner. And I definitely feel like those values aligned with the ones that I've listed as being most emphasized. Um, So kind of reflecting on my own cultural background and identity and which moral foundations were most influential in my life. Um, as a first generation Mexican of two Mexican immigrants, um, I understood, like how important, liberty was for us and being able to have a place, in the United States. Um, and I always identified with being Mexican and Mexican American and being proud of being bilingual and Spanish being my first language. Um, so I definitely identified with liberty as being one of the moral foundations, but also recognize the equality that we faced as well as being people of color and being Mexican. And so making sure that I was treated fairly was something that I recognized even at an early age. Um, and I think that I was able to be treated fairly because of being able to adapt to like growing up in a rural community in Texas called Marble Falls, being primarily raised around um, white people and excelling in academics and sports. So I knew that those things were able to kind of get me in the door to being treated fairly, if that makes sense. And with my parents, I definitely saw how, just working and paying taxes, and being law abiding citizens, allowed us to be treated fairly. However, I also recognize it as being a person of color, I had to endure, racism and discrimination. And that was more evident definitely in my parents' lives and the wages they were paid, the type of jobs they were able to secure. Um, and loyalty, I think that was very influential because of the lack of it, I think, especially in my parents' relationship. I had to see some things um, occur in the treatment of my father uh, towards my mother. And I think I recognize that that relationship there was a lack of loyalty. And I definitely wanted to do everything possible to always display loyalty in all of my relationships. Um, um, and so I guess that kind of speaks to some of the original triggers that were formed by some of the challenges I had in life. Um, and definitely by the current triggers, which I've experienced in my adulthood. Um, especially, spending all those years incarcerated, from the age of 18 to 31, and I'm 43 years old now. A lot of these moral foundations that I've chosen with liberty and fairness and loyalty are really shaped around the school to prison pipeline that I feel I fell into, um, because of what I feel were a lot of treated substance use and mental health disorders, intergenerational trauma, and growing up in a rural community like Marble Falls, where my parents didn't really know how they could help me. Juvenile probation didn't really know how to help me. My school didn't know how to help me. I think my community and just in the whole just didn't really know how to help me. And so a lot of what I live by now are kind of shaped by all those experiences that I've just mentioned. Um, so how can I be prepared to appreciate the moral foundations my clients might bring to me when we're working together? I think kind of just sharing a little bit about what I shared, as far as how I was shaped by my nature and my DNA, growing up, as first generation Mexican. But then, even how my culture has how it nurtured me and what I learned from it. And culture, I'm not just talking about the Mexican culture, but just, the culture of like growing up in a street gang, the culture of, being involved in academics and sports at one time, the culture that I adapted to while I was incarcerated all those years, and the prison gang culture that, I used as a survival tool while I was incarcerated, which had some consequences with it as well, and then, the culture of recovery and the many different pathways that I've walked in to kind of get to where I'm at in life, and the behavioral health field and that whole culture that comes with that, and the different settings that I've worked in. And now, even presently, like, the culture that I live in with being a stepfather and having stepdaughters and working in state government, which is just a whole culture in itself that I've really had to like learn to adapt to. So all that I've mentioned, is definitely going to prepare me to work with other folks, because I understand that we all come from different backgrounds and, and different, just morals that kind of shape who we are, from our childhood and the experiences that we have as an adult as well. Oh, and another thing that really caught my attention in some of the material that has been presented to us, was definitely the statement that was stated by Hillary Clinton, that the racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. And unfortunately, there are people like that, and he has lifted them up. Him being, Donald Trump. So that's something that I've really had to grow, accustomed to, is that I feel that people are a little bit more out there and, expressing the things that Hillary Clinton mentioned in that statement. It's never been more evident since, Donald Trump was in office, and even present day in 2023. And it was really concerning to me to see people just very out in the open, and the things that were coming out of the mouth, and their hatred that was directed towards people, and how they would try to, justify that type of behavior. And it's something that I'm still, dealing with present day as well, even with some folks that I consider my colleagues and friends. And that kind of leads into the last question of how I might use my insights from the righteous mind to encourage more productive conversations in a context of diverse and polarized moral opinions. Speaking on morality binds and blinds, I've recognized, how faith and religion is very strong in people's lives, and, and how I was able to bring people together, and, it allows people to live a life that is healthy, in their belief, and some of the rituals that are practiced in religion, are able to keep, communities together, and also see how altruism comes out of the faith-based communities and religion, and, and doing good works for other people that, might be from a lower sexual, social, economic status. I can think of, prison ministry that I've been involved in, that were primarily folks that were white, from church communities across Texas that had never had the experience of incarceration, but, didn't forget about that population as well. And so that's kind of brought me together with some folks that might have different political ideologies as me. But I've enjoyed, meeting new people in those prison ministries as well. And it's really allowed me to, even though we might share different beliefs politically, even in religion, coming together to support that population of folks, which I was once part of, has kind of allowed us to just be one, and I think I've really enjoyed doing that as well. Also recognize that human beings are like conditional hive creatures. Um, when I read this and I listened to Dr. Bader say, discuss how people can get pulled together when the switches flip, I instantly thought about like sporting events and like being a really huge Texas Longhorn fan, because I attend a lot of the live events. I go to football, baseball, basketball games, and we're all together, in that setting, cheering our favorite team on, but I also recognize that, we might come from different religious and political backgrounds, to be able to, but to just to be able to come together as one, root on our favorite team, is, it's pretty cool. And it makes me happy that something can bring us together, as long as religion and politics aren't involved. But I've also seen over the past, almost 12 years that I've been free, how religion and politics have even got involved in, like that university setting, which has impacted, the football team as well, when there was a lot of conflict over the school fight song. And then also, learning about reciprocal and parochial altruism. I worked the 86th legislative session here in Texas when I was employed with the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition here in Austin as a policy analyst. And so I really learned a lot about politics and, the left and the right. And, and I learned about, how there can be like bipartisan support. So as far as the bipartisan support, I also kind of fell into reciprocal where, there was self-interest, on the conservative side on how some of the policy around criminal justice reform could, be of less cost to the state of Texas and Texans as a whole. And also I learned about, parochial altruism and working together with the conservative side to, better the conditions for folks that were, getting system impacted and becoming incarcerated, and I never thought that I would be able to work, with other organizations, that are primarily conservative, but it opened my eyes to how we can work together, for the better good, regardless if there is, an ulterior motive, if it's financial or political, what it might be. But I think all the experiences that I've shared, along with the, the insights from the Righteous Mind and Height, have really allowed me to, see other folks' perspective in my own life, and, and I think I've already kind of experienced, working with other folks that have different moral opinions as mine, especially working at a residential substance use treatment center where I was probably like one of 5 people, that were people of color while I was working there, with the majority of my clients being white. But, I think I've really enjoyed the class thus far. I know I've missed some class sessions, but the things that we're discussing, are definitely I'm living, as Dr. St. David said one time in class. But thank you.